Zerg is imba. I don't understand how my opponent won this game. I just don't know. We have a fairly even early game where I managed to get away with a slightly greedy third nexus before second gate in my hero-style opener. He only manages to kill 8 probes with a large attempted link flood at my third and natural. Meanwhile, I still have 6 drone kills to my name with my oracles, putting him behind. Once my upgrades finish, I move out and trade efficiently during the mid-game, even killing 20 workers with 1 run-by. I was ahead in every possible way. I have the game in my hands. Surely only Sarah would be able to come back in this game with superior multitasking and skill, right? Apparently not, as there was nothing I could do to stop his Roach Hydra Ling army of smaller value from A-moving to my fort base, fighting into a battery overcharge, and... winning. I don't know why this is possible. Even my opponent, Chu Chilla, is stunned at how he managed to win this game with a simple A move. Perhaps if I had 3 more gateways, I would have been able to hold this A move from my opponent. But this is a tiny mistake compared to the multiple blunders of my opponent. My opponent made so many blunders, so many more blunders than I did, but still won the game. Surely, this is imba. Or do I suck? This imbalanced complaint form was sent in by you, a player called you, on the North American ladder in Grandmaster 4815 MMR. And he says, Zerg is imbalanced. Or do I suck? And we're here to find out. You and I. You versus Chuchilla. Oh, what a game this is. A game for the ages in which we have you, a Grandmaster player, starting his pylon 45 minerals too late. And on the edge of getting 50 minerals. That is a pretty significant error already at the Grandmaster level, but we'll forgive him for it. He was, from what I've heard... yeah, he was switching his music on Spotify, and then sometimes this type of stuff happens. You know, he was still in the lobby screen playlist, you know, the loading screen where you're trying to find a match. But now he's in the in-game playlist, you know, as a true bangers like R&B from the late 90s. That's what you truly vibes to, at this moment at least, and specifically when it comes to Babylon. Such a 90s R&B vibe, if you ask me, and you definitely agrees. Opens up with a Gateway Scout. This used to be called Enlightened. I still believe this is Enlightened. These days, every single Zerg player opening up with 14 hatches, 15 hatches, making sure that you can't block their natural anymore. So I understand the Gateway Scout. You don't want to block against this because your probe doesn't get to block anyway, so why even bother trying? You might as well give up altogether. And that's exactly what you did over here. Mining 2 workers in gas, rallies a worker towards the third, forgets to start his 20th probe. Happens as well while switching a song. Some Mariah Carey came on. It's not what he wanted at all. Now builds a Nexus at an appropriate time. And then throws down that cybernetic score. 3 in gas. This is just... Oracle build. It smells like an Oracle build. It looks like an Oracle build. This is an Oracle build. Another big giveaway to the fact that this was an Oracle build is the fact that he stated that he built Oracles in his imbalanced complaint form. That makes these reads significantly easier for me. Majority of the time what we see here is a pylon forward. Instead we're seeing a pylon further in the back. I'm not necessarily opposed to this. I really am not. Most of the time Zerg players will wait with their Overlord Scout until they see what comes out as the second unit. If the second unit is a Stalker, they will not go in with their Overlord to Scout. If the second unit is an Adept, they'll go in with their Overlord to Scout and confirm what the actual tech is. Now, this Zerg player is a little bit different. Chuchilla, he says, hey, I actually want to figure it out right away. I don't care so much about whether you're chrono boosting your gateway, how many gateway units you're going to be building. No, I want to know what tech you have. And in order to get that info, I am perhaps going to sacrifice my Overlord. Because if that first unit is a chrono boosted Stalker, you could be in a little bit of trouble with this Overlord. So this move carries some risk, but it is a risk that pays off here. So the first unit is going to be an Adept that is non-chrono boosted. 2 links make their way across the map as well. We'll poke up here, see that the Adept is still in the wall. This is a very standard opener here. Is it? Yeah, very standard opener. For a second I was thinking, wait, is this Creep Tumor too early or is this Creep Tumor too late? But I think that Creep Tumor is fairly at a normal timing. 2 Overlords here are the very weird timings. He's completely skipping queens altogether. We don't have queen number 3. We don't have queen number 4. And now we're starting a queen. But that is after what? The 5th Overlord. This is extremely uncommon. This is actually extremely uncommon. You really never see this. He has to build 2 spores immediately as well, because he won't have queens in time to deal with the first Oracle. I've never seen this before out of a Zerg player. That is super weird. Now, there are a bunch of links coming out right now. We don't have a full wall yet here out of the toss. Who is playing what he called a greedy fast third base. But to me just seems like a bad build order. He's gonna lose a probe here and a depth. I'm gonna explain why I think this is a bad build order. You know, you guys could take my word for it and say, oh, Harstem, he's very good at the game. He's smart, he's a big brain. Attractive as well, by the way.
Stop the cap.
Handsome fella, for sure. I'll take his word for it. But no, I'll show you why the execution of this particular build order has been quite poor. And I think we need to go back further because we see all Chrono Boosts used it. Yes, here we go. This is actually interesting because I spot that something goes wrong in the build and then we can go back and find what our Protoss player did wrong here. So if you're opting to go for a Nexus before third pylon, what very often ends up happening is that you get supply block on 46 out of 46 and you can't build your second Oracle straight away, which is pretty terrible for a Protoss if you're trying to get multiple Oracles out. So what you don't want to do if you want to go for a fast third base is Chrono Boost your probes like mad. Actually, you want to Chrono Boost your Adepts. This sounds weird, but in order to properly play a greedy build, you need to Chrono Boost Adepts rather than probes. Because if you end up Chrono Boosting probes, you'll see what ends up going on here. So he has the double chronos here on the probe. I think it's actually the 3rd chrono here on the probes. So every single chrono so far has been on probes. I think if you cut 2 chronos, this works out. But because he's building so many workers, a lot of money is being spent in workers. And it means that the supply is going to rise much quicker than it would if you didn't do those chrono boosts, okay? Because the probe count is higher and you want to get your Nexus pre-third pylon so that you have a quick Nexus. This means that what ends up happening is that you don't have the supply available to either continue probe production here or to continue Oracle production, while ideally you want to be continuing both at the same time. So he's going to throw down a Nexus right now at 43 out of 46 supply. This Oracle pops at 3 minutes and 32 seconds. So we keep that in mind, 3:32. Pylon goes down now as well. Bumpy dumpy dum. Doesn't have the cash available to full wall with a second gateway either, which means if this link flood, or if this would have been a link flood, or if these links would have gone in towards a natural or towards a main base, this probably would have lost you 3-4 workers, which would have been kind of painful, also would have lost some mining time. That's not the case. This Zerg player instead goes over towards the third base, where I think he snipes the worker. But look, even right now, we see a minor supply block, and this pylon is going to finish up. What did I say? Was it 32 that I said? 332 or 337? One of the two. Whatever it was, this Oracle is going to be delayed by, well, about 20 seconds, which is kind of a big deal, especially given the fact that the Zerg player skipped on queens. So the Zerg player played this pretty greedy. The Protoss played this pretty greedy, except it felt like the Zerg got away with it way more than the Toss did here. Also still going to get quite some damage here on this Adept. There's only a single Oracle. This Oracle only had 25 energy, so using a Pulsar Beam here was practically impossible. Now needs to pull down this Adept from the high ground, which means if more links were coming in at this point, this would have been extremely risky. So he's taking a massive risk. Like, what Chilla did here was a very standard move. He moved across the map with 8, I think it was 8 links? Yeah. It was 8 links. It could have been 10 links. You would have been in so much trouble. You actually would have been in so much trouble. Instead, it was only 8 links. And this already felt like the worst possible start here for you. I literally can't imagine a worse start. Look at this. This gas is going down 20 seconds after it usually is supposed to go down on the natural. Usually you can build 2 gases at the same time on the natural. Not sure why the 4th gas isn't going down right now. I'm sure we're going to have a great explanation for that later, but for now, I have absolutely no clue. Oracles have been delayed. Scouting has been delayed. There has been no scouting since the early game adapt. There's been no harassment since the early game adapt. Like, there's so many things here that could have been going wrong behind this. You is very lucky that Chuchilla is just playing a standard macro game. And now you're fighting against 4 queens, against someone that didn't have Overlord spread. And you get 6 worker kills. Wow, that is very impressive. So, once again, just to make sure that we're all on the same page here. The standard amount of queens in ZVP is either going to be 6 queens or 7 queens. Right now we're working with 4 queens. That means that every single base is going to have 1 queen, except for 1 base, which is going to have 2 queens. That means that 2 out of the 3 bases are going to be very vulnerable against Oracle harass. And all you managed to do was get 6 drone kills. This is like being proud that you managed to beat a 3-year-old in table tennis, but you didn't even win with 21-0. No, it was like 15-21. Like, that's not pathetic. That's not good. That's pathetic. The kid can barely stand above the table. He doesn't even see the ball coming. He only manages to kill approximately 8 probes with a large attempted link flood at my 3rd and natural. Meanwhile, I still have 6 drone kills to my name with my oracles, putting him behind. The authority at which this was set almost made me forget about the fact that 17 probes have been killed so far in this game and a mere 6 drones. Okay, let me revisit the table tennis analogy here, alright? Let me revisit that. So this is like bragging about beating a 3-year-old 21-15 in table tennis, but then forgetting to mention that he swept the floor with you in the next 4 games, 21-0. Like, you're so far behind right now. Are you serious? You lost 17 workers to a link flood, in which majority of the links also stayed alive. Behind this, there's tech going down. There's a bunch of cash in the bank for the Zerg player. What did you call it? You call it an attempted link flood. Yeah, attempted link flood, which also succeeded. This is like saying that Jack the Ripper attempted murder. It's like, yeah, he attempted it and he succeeded at it. It's like, what? This is not how language works. When you say he attempted a link flood, you make it sound like it didn't succeed. Like he failed. He didn't fail. This went great. He has 69 workers to 53. He has +1 on his links. He has roaches for safety on the way. He's getting extra upgrades. Has 4 bases up already. Hell, you have no guess. He's killing more workers. He just killed 2 extra workers. You're forced to use a super battery. You have 4 idling probes out of the 54 as well. How is this a good situation? How are you going to get back into this game? I actually have no clue. Oh, I guess these 7 drones are gonna definitely help out at least a little bit. If these 7 drones were just 14 more links or 7 more roaches, my lord, would you have been in some serious trouble here. Nice movement, moving behind the extractor. Making sure that all the roaches can properly spread out for maximum damage output. Good control actually here by the Zerg, who is supply block, which is a very major error. Lost a couple of overlords and as a result can't produce. Has plenty of larva, can't do anything with it. Can't do anything with it. Oh, look how much cash he has in the bank. 59 workers to 75. I actually believe that this game is technically should have been over. It really technically should have been over. You also called this hero style, by the way. I don't think hero wants anything to do with this. This is like me playing a cover of an Arctic Monkeys song, you know? All the yellow bricks lose a risk. Quite early an escapologist. Luke so missed when you just for a total better than this. Rip headphone users. And then I called an Arctic Monkeys song. It's like, no. Hey, the Arctic Monkeys would listen to it and then they'd make sure to pull their name off of that stuff. It's not theirs, you know. This is not Heroes either. Hero looks at that as like, what? 18 stalkers? 9 minutes into the game? Your 4th base starts now? You lost 19 workers to 25 links. This ain't mine. You can keep it, mate. I am not touching this with a 10-foot stick. Holy crap. This is some pretty decent control, though. You're pulling back actually very properly. I like the way you're doing this. I really like the way you're doing this. Pulling down stasis, denied a lot of creep, and just trying to trade off creep. This works fantastic, especially against roaches without any link cover. You can just individually blink stalkers back, pick off roach, pick off roach, pick off roach. I like that you're getting charged. I also dig that you have started your... that your +2 has finished. I think +3 could be on the way ASAP. Going into 6 gases is fairly different from what Hero does. Hero usually goes to higher gateway counts initially, stays a little bit longer on those 4 bases, on 4 gases. Majority of the time, at least when I see him go. I'm loving these stages wars, though. I actually think this is good, but you're still in a bad situation. You're right now in a situation that if the Zerg had the ability to spend any of his money, you would be completely dead. I really do believe that. Like, completely freaking dead. Zerg here is moving out, and it's honestly a move that I kind of understand. Although I would have preferred if there was any amount of banelings with this, and if this were maxed out, and if money was being utilized, if +2 melee was on the way. There's a bunch of things here that the Zerg definitely is doing incorrect. This is the Zealot run by you spoke about. This is actually a very good Zealot run by. So I like the way you have utilized your unit so far. There's not enough Zerg to truly kill this. The upgrades for the Zerg are probably also not good enough, and there's simply not enough stuff. Half the army gets sent back to deal with the Zealot run by, which is busy killing stuff. I think at this point you are actually in a fairly significant lead. You're very far ahead right now, and I think partially of that has to do with that single Zealot run by that you just managed to execute. Without that Zealot run by, I think Zerg could have done this a little bit slower, but the Zerg felt the pressure. Now, we can now look at this situation, think about what we should be doing, okay? We're in a situation where we're up 11 workers. We have +3 on the way. We just finished a robotic facility that we currently aren't using. We have 800 gas in the bank, which is the most important resource for Protoss against Zerg. And we have a robotic facility that isn't doing anything. Now, there's a couple of things we could do. The first thing before you make any move is you want to analyze the situation. What info do we have? So do we know how many workers we have killed? Do we know how much gas there is? Do we know if there's a hive? If there's no hive, is there really any reason for us to attack whatsoever? I think the answer is no. If we see that there is no hive, if we know we're up in workers, which is something that we could scout, we could check how many gases are being saturated. You see there's hardly any gas mining going on over here. It's a little bit suspicious. Why is that? Like, why is that? Maybe you don't have enough drones. That is completely possible. I like the transition into Robo Bay as well as second robotics facility, but I would love to see some Immortals here being built. There's also a lot of gas in the bank. You're fighting against an army of purely range units with no force field breakers, no banelings whatsoever. That means that force fields could potentially actually be very helpful for helping you stabilize, for helping you survive. You have 9 gates available, and you have 700 gas. You warp in 5 sentries. You still have enough gas to start your Disruptor or your Colossus transition. I'd much rather have it be Disruptors, by the way, here, but or just Immortals, honestly. I also would be okay with. I am loving the way you're moving these units. I am hating the way that you don't have a Zealot run by setup yet. That worked perfectly for you last time. It is difficult for Zerg to split off units defensively if they already don't have such a large army, and if they're pretty much forced into an all-in, which is kind of what you're forcing your opponent to do here. You're forcing your opponent into an all-in with these constant trades, with the fact that you are going to be up in upgrade, with the fact that you have more workers, and you're not preparing for a defense quite yet. Yes, you have 2 cannons, no sentries. You decided to go for an observer rather than opting for 1 or 2 Immortals that you could have probably pushed out in the past 2 minutes. And this fight is, well, it's probably as good as you're gonna get it. We do get a sniper on the super battery, but if there's Roach Hydra that is pretty much maxed out against a pure Stalker army, and the Stalkers can't move back because they need to defend something, Roach Hydra is actually pretty decent. This is the one scenario in which Roach Hydra is pretty decent. And then you lose a fight. Like, this was a complete all-in army from your opponent. Another thing you could have done is you could have just send another run-by out. Give up your own fort base, evacuate the probes, move them over here, so you take this as your new fort, send in a run by. You still would have been up in workers, probably would have killed another 10, 12 workers, force your opponent's army back, and then you can continue kiting with the stalkers to another base. So you have these 2 cannons, you have this battery over here. Instead, you decided to hold a position I bet you knew you couldn't hold when you looked at those 2 armies. You realized that was probably too much, yet you tried and then you failed rather than looking for an alternative solution. Like, sometimes in life, the easiest thing isn't to go head first through a brick wall, but it's to walk around the brick wall. And that is kind of what you could have done here. You could have just ran away from your opponent's army with the mobility advantage that you had. Instead, you just bopped your head into the brick wall and then you lose to a Roach Hydra army. This is literally the only thing that a Roach Hydra army is good against. It is against a non-splash, non-force field Zealot Stalker army that can't kite back. Like, these are very specific requirements that you need to meet in order to make a Roach Hydra army perform somewhat decently. And you managed to hit every freaking requirement here in the book. Yeah, impressive. Very impressive. Yeah, now you're dead. You're also... I don't like transitions into Colossus this late. I genuinely think they freaking suck. 99% of the time. You tend to open yourself up for Viper abuse. You're not great against things like Lurkers. And, I mean, do you really want Colossus against heavy Roach Force? I think I'd rather just have a couple of extra Immortals and Sentries. You're playing against this type of army. I personally think that is better. I know that there's other tosses that prefer different things, but at least while you were attacking into the Robobay, you should have built some Immortals, knowing that you were up by quite a bit and that your opponent was stuck merely on layer attack. Like, I find it difficult to believe that Chewchilla looked at this game and thought to himself, man, I have absolutely no clue here what the Protoss could have done better. I don't believe this. I think that Chewchilla is actually just a pretty good friend. That's what I'm just gonna say, okay? I think Chewchilla is a good friend of yours. Because you said that even my opponent, Chewchilla, didn't know how he won. It's like, well, I think he knew. He just didn't, he didn't want to insult you. Because the reason why Chewchilla is winning this game is because you decided to build nothing but Stalker and Zealot while you were being all in by a Roach Hydra army. If you would have built Sentries, if you would have built Immortals, if you would have built more cannons maybe preemptively with the massive bank that you had. Like, all of these things could have been freaking helpful. Maybe spend some of the cash that you had, saving up for the carrier transition. All of these things could have been very helpful. Yeah, GG. I think Chewchilla is just a good friend. He didn't want to hurt your feelings, but actually, that makes Chewchilla a bad friend. A good friend would tell you. Chewchilla is like one of these friends you've seen a couple of times at a party. You drank a beer with once. Chewchilla told a funny story. You laughed at it and, he tagged you in Instagram. That's pretty much as far as your relationship with Chewchilla goes. But he's not friendly enough with you to tell you when you're wrong. He's not that type of friend. He's not that close, Feels a little bit awkward. He felt awkward when you asked him. It's like, hey, what did I do wrong? It's like, well, a lot. Your entire early game was incorrect, for example. I'll take the role as Chewchilla, okay? This is what Chewchilla would have said if he were a very good friend of yours. He would have said, well, first of all, your build seemed fairly suboptimal. Inefficient. You chrono boosted your probes 4 times, then got supply block at 46. Is that really a greedy build, or do you just not understand how the early game works? Huh? That's what Chewchilla could have said. Then also, I cut 3 queens from my own build order, yet you only got 6 kills while building 3 oracles? That's pathetic. Hero often gets 20 kills while fighting against 9 queens. You did an awful job. You're not worthy the name of a hero style. That's something Chewchilla could have said. It's not what I'm saying. Chewchilla could have said that. He could go on. On top of that, I went for a Ling run by, which at this timing really should do absolutely no damage whatsoever, yet I killed 17 workers. Because you didn't pull your workers away at all. You just stood there, continued mining. Your adepts were safe, but I'm aiming for your workers. I'm never going to kill a base with a Ling flood because you have triple oracles. So get your workers to safety and let the adepts do the tanking. These guys are replaceable. Your probes really aren't. Then, with a good run by and some good control, you get back into the game. I appreciate you for that. And I think that is probably the most skill you have shown in this game. But you're floating so much money while you know that I'm going to all in because I don't have a hive, I don't have a high worker count. Why don't you continue run buying? Why aren't you teching up into Immortals? Why aren't you building any sentries? No static defense. Why didn't you give up your fourth base when you knew that it was dead and just try defending at your third while going for a run by? These are all the things you could have done better, and yet you didn't. The only thing you came up with by yourself was that you should have added 3 gateways. But with those 3 gateways, all you would have done is just add another 6 stalkers. That wouldn't have saved you at all. You know why that wouldn't have saved you at all? Because you suck. And that's just the way it is. Ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum-bum. Some things will never be the same. Yeah, that is indeed the way it is. You suck, you. And shout out to Chuchilla for being a good opponent. Now, that's going to be it for me today. If you did enjoy this episode of Is It Imba or Do I Suck? Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and perhaps I'll see all of you next time for more videos. If you have any input as well on why you think you suck, be sure to leave it down in the comments below. And tell me what you think of the beard that I've been growing as well. It's not been going great, but it is a start. So yeah, give me a rating, 1 to 10. Anything below 5, I will ban you from my channel forever. Thank you.